We won't be doing a full story recap, so I recommend you go watch the movies for better context and no spoilers. Imagine receiving a message from a place you escaped as a kid, a place you remember as a harmless community, but your brother remembers it as a death cult. The people there haven't aged because time acts weirdly different for them, and something that you can't see has been watching you your entire life. This is the Endless, and if you ever stepped foot inside this place, you wouldn't just die, you'd be owned for someone else's amusement. Two brothers, Justin and Aaron, return to Camp Arcadia after receiving a mysterious tape. The tape proves the camp is still very much alive, kinda frozen in time, not dead from an apparent mass suicide that Justin thought was gonna happen. What they don't know is that the tape wasn't sent by people, it was sent by the entity, a being that exists beyond time, that traps areas in looping time domes, and feeds on human lives like composed entertainment. Camp Arcadia is just one enclosure. There are more, many more. Each one tells a unique story about how long a person can endure despair before breaking. This leads us to the real question: why you'd be screwed? Not because you're weak, but because this system is perfect. The entity doesn't explain itself. It does leave hints though, photographs of yourself and a place of interest, tapes that tell an outcome for something you've done either in the past or the future. Every person inside the domes are forced to interpret it differently. Some believe it's a god, others take it as an equation or giant eyes floating in the dark sky. One inhabitant of the camp, Hal, says trying to explain the situation would be like explaining an impossible color the human eye can't see. But here's the trap. Understanding the rules requires experimenting, and experimentation means risking horrifying deaths that don't stick. Some loops last 10 years, other ones last 1 week or 3 hours. You don't get to choose which one you fall into, so before you can learn how the system works, you're already trapped inside, and adapting becomes easier than escaping. Eventually, escape feels risky, while staying feels safe, and resistance feels pointless. You spend enough of your waking hours in a time dome, you stop asking, how do I leave? And start wondering, how do I endure? That's when the loop has you, and by then, you're already gone. Before any of you get any ideas, death doesn't free you, it's more so the reset button. This is where the Endless becomes worse than almost any cosmic horror story. Carl, the man trapped in a 3-hour loop, kills himself constantly just to feel like he has control, but also because it's much worse if the entity does it for you. But every time, he wakes up again.
Where's my house? Why the fuck are you in my house?
Justin comes across his body still hanging in the room from a previous loop. He also says how the entity doesn't let him sleep or dream, using this as a means for his mind to stay trapped. But there's more. The worst one of all is a man trapped in a loop of 5 seconds. He starts sitting down in a chair, then running to escape the tent. Boom. Imprisonment for eternity. A fate worse than death. Reliving the same 5 seconds until the end of all things. Not to mention the annoying record restarting with him. An overlooked part of the scam is hope. Camp Arcadia looks very peaceful. People are creepily kind, they give hugs, share meals, and encourage personal growth. And that's up there as the most dangerous part. The entity doesn't rule through terror alone. It can offer belonging, purpose, and the one that could get me personally, never aging past the time you went in. To a person like Aaron, someone lonely, directionless, and exhausted by the outside world, this place feels like salvation. You wouldn't fight the loop. You would try to rationalize it. You tell yourself, at least I'm not alone. At least I don't have to worry about my health, growing old, or poverty. Since the camp specifically is on a 10-year loop, that wouldn't seem too bad to most. But keep in mind, the period of the time loop is not a choice to be made by you. The entity does allow you to resist, but only as long as it's entertaining. People who surrender become background noise. People who fight, question, or refuse to believe, they become stories. That's why the entity lured Justin and Aaron back. It knew of their relationship, their conflict and choices, a fresh narrative right before the 10-year reset. And if you ever give up control once, if you let the entity decide for you, you never get it back, which is exactly what put Chris and Mike in this situation to begin with. And In the standalone prequel titled Resolution, Chris and Mike reach what should be a happy ending. Chris agrees to go to rehab, so it's time for them to finally leave. They grow and change, earning resolution, and the entity rejects it, not because it's wrong, but because it's boring. The cosmic force resets their lives into a one-week loop, forcing them to relive the same suffering again and again, not as punishment, but as entertainment. A horror story that refuses to end on hope. At the end of Resolution, when the entity finally manifests in front of them, Chris stops fighting. He bows his head and apologizes while Mike, desperate and scared, begs, "Can we do it another way?" That moment is everything, because it proves you can make choices, you can change, but if the result isn't entertaining, it doesn't count. The film even breaks the fourth wall, implying the entity isn't really a god, but the audience itself, a presence that demands suffering, forcing characters to repeat their pain until the story feels right. So when you enter the entity's domain, understand this: free will does exist, but only as long as your choices serve the narrative. The moment you try to end your story peacefully, the loop begins again. The only reason Justin and Aaron escape is because they change and never give the entity control. Justin stops controlling everything about him and his brother's life. Aaron stops surrendering, making them meet as equals. Even as they saw everything being demolished behind them, they didn't bow or plead. They literally push past the boundary before the reset. They break free from the physical domain and their own emotional loop, something very rare. Most of us can't evolve under pressure. We repeat patterns, cling to comfort, and choose familiarity over freedom. Unfortunately for those kinds of people, the entity has all the time in the universe to wait you out. Which is why you'd be completely screwed in the endless. The idea that given enough time, you wouldn't try to escape. You'd accept it, looping for an eternity. And the moment you stop fighting, the story officially ends, and it moves on to the next one. But I want to thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, keep watching the dark, because it's definitely watching you.
Can we try it another way?